we are fortunate enough to have another guest on our phone, Kevin DeWine. He's the recently elected new chairman of the Ohio Republican Party. He's calling from Washington, D.C., where the new national chairman of the Republican Party is going to be chosen here in the next several days. Hi, Kevin. Welcome to our show.
Hey, good morning, Ron. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you here, Kevin. As you know, Governor Ted Strickland made his State of the State speech yesterday. Had some very interesting things in there, especially in terms of school reform and school funding. What's your overall impression of what he said?
Well, I guess I have a couple of different thoughts on it. First of all, it was probably like every State of the State speech that's been given over the last 30 years, and it was long on promises and short on detail. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of hard to gauge. It's kind of hard to gauge primarily this education, all the education initiatives, until you actually see what he's trying to propose and when. What we know is that since the speech, some of that detail has started to come out, and the issue specifically about school funding, which he staked his governorship on,
right?
It would appear that from what we're able to pick up, that it will take up to 8 years to phase in the new school funding formula, and the bottom line is for a governor who staked his reputation on school funding, you can't phase in constitutionality, and so there's a lot of questions around the school funding portion of this. For any of your school districts up there that have declining enrollment or flat enrollment, I think they ought to be very concerned about what this formula will do to them, because they'll in all likelihood lose money on this deal. So lots of issues on the education side to dig into. But the part that I thought was missing, the gap, the almost total lack of focus on this in the State of the State speech, Ron, was there was hardly any discussion of any substantive, bold, or visionary idea relating to the economy. Mm-hmm. And I understand that his number one issue might be education, but I think to your listeners, the number one issue is the economy. And the only thing that he really mentioned yesterday was a second stimulus package, which they haven't implemented the first one yet.
Are you talking about state or federal?
State.
Mm-hmm.
State. They haven't implemented the first one yet, and talked about light rail. I don't know what the people of the state of Ohio are supposed to take away from this speech that the governor plans to do for the economy, which I think is probably in the hearts and minds of all your listeners the number one issue.
Yeah. Now, he did mention expanding tax credits to spur job creation. He said, as you said, a second economic stimulus plan to augment the $1.57 billion spending plan already approved last year. Right. But I agree with you. I don't know where he's going with that.
Yeah, look, he mentioned one of those tax credits was this film tax credit, which is not unlike the one that he vetoed in December. Mm-hmm. The General Assembly passed one. He vetoed it, and now he wants to bring it back.
I think he's looking at a different funding source, though, isn't he? Well,
that to me, that's a nice excuse. Mm-hmm. But it's a pretty weak argument. Mm-hmm. I think what it was, he got some heat from folks up in Cleveland about it, and said okay, and is putting it back in. Mm-hmm. But really, not much for people to grab onto who are worried about their jobs, who are worried about the economy, who are worried about how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to make their mortgage payment, how they're going to take care of the family members. There wasn't anything there to grasp onto. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Okay, let me remind our listeners that we're talking with Kevin DeWine. He's the newly elected chairman of the Ohio Republican Party. Kevin is in Washington attending the, convention to select the new national chairman. Kevin, how is that going? There's 6 candidates, and from what I can gather, there's no clear front runner, is it?
Well, there's no clear front runner from what I've been able to tell. I have had conversations with, let's see, 3 of the 6 so far. I've got, I'll take care of numbers 4 and 5 later on today. Number 6, I'm not sure how I'll track him down, but we'll get to him too. But boy, it is exactly what you would expect with a bunch of politicking going on in the hallways and in the ante rooms and the
smoke-filled back rooms.
Smoke-filled rooms. Oh yeah, there's smoke-filled rooms, and there's wheeling and dealing going on, and members working over members, and it's actually fun to watch.
Well, as I said earlier, I watched on the way out the door this morning. CNN had interviewed Ken Blackwell. Of course, he's from Ohio, former Secretary of State, former unsuccessful gubernatorial candidate, and I did qualify that by saying I was glad he was an unsuccessful gubernatorial candidate, although I did some things for his campaign from a marketing perspective. But my point is that the questioner asked him about the Republican Party, the base versus expanding the party to include more people than the base. I really didn't like his answers. I'll ask you the same question, and I think I've asked you this before. The Republican Party has come under criticism for not tending to the needs of the people other than the base, the conservatives, the right-wingers, and other folks on the national level and local level have said that the Republican Party, nationally, locally, and statewide, has to increase their membership. How do you do that and still satisfy the base?
Well, I think there's an image gap and less of an issue gap. I think when you talk, depends on the demographic of the people you talk to. More often than not, whether there are large chunks of each demographic that line up philosophically with traditional Republican principles, whether it's self-sufficiency, entrepreneurism, lower taxes, smaller government, those kinds of things, whether it's the position on the bailout or the economic crisis or the position on diplomacy or the war. There's big chunks of each demographic group that lines up with the Republican Party, and so the issue gap isn't all that great. The problem for our party right now is the image gap, and we have this image gap that you described. That we are described, we are viewed as being, we are viewed in a lot of different. There's a lot of different words.
You want me to add some adjectives for you?
Yeah, go ahead and add some adjectives, and I'll say intolerant.
Yes,
I'll say
narrow-minded.
Old,
White,
say,
male,
slow,
narrow-minded.
Narrow-minded.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of that, and so I think. What I'm seeing on this stuff, Ron, is that there's a lot of people who tend to agree with a lot of Republican issues, but they can't get past this reputation that our party has and probably has earned over many number of years, and it's the task and the job of the person we elect here tomorrow as our national chairman. It's my job in Ohio. It's the local Republicans' job where you are to help change that, and it's a big task.
Yeah, and Kevin, you are very honest about that, and I think that's the first step to solving that issue. Just as Jeff Matthews, who's our local Republican Party chairman here in Stark County, he's the same way. The Republican philosophy is a good philosophy, and it's the application of it, although there's still an image problem. But I would not want the party to assume that you bring out a new marketing campaign and you put lipstick on a pig and you think you got all your problems solved.
No, there's a lot of work to do. As you and I have talked about before, there's a lot of work to do, and part of my commitment to that has been the hiring of an individual at the party to focus on various coalitions.
You're talking about apps?
Focus on outreach to those various coalitions, not necessarily to carry the party's message, but to find out to work with those various coalitions and to engage them and to bring a little of our message to them, but more importantly to bring messages back to the party so that we can start to win back those people who
I like that.
Do agree with us.
Yeah, I like that. You just don't want to tell us. You want us to be able to speak our mind, give you an opinion of what we think, and you want to react to that.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah, this is a bottom-up rebuilding effort. It's not going to be a top-down.
Great. And I really hope that the Republican Party is successful in rebuilding, because as much as I like Barack Obama, I don't want to give the Democrats a free rein to do whatever they want to do, because I think any party with free rein, they're bound to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna let you go back into the meeting. Would you tell Ken Blackwell that Ron Ponder said he's a goof? and tell him I based it on his interview this morning. I thought that was the most insane interview I've ever seen a national person give. I just was so disappointed in what Ken Blackwell was saying. But I do like Duncan. Although he was George Bush's favorite, but I still like some of the things that he tried to do. And I like Richard Steele. And you told me off air that you're going to be meeting with him. I would really be anxious to understand or get your impression of him personally.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe what I'll do is once I'm done meeting with him, I'll call you, and you and I will just have a chat about it. How about that?
That'll work. That'll work. Okay. Good luck to you. This is Kevin DeWine, the recently elected Ohio State Republican Party chairman. Kevin, I like what you're doing. I want to encourage you to keep it up and make sure that you keep us aware of whatever you're doing, because we want to be helpful to you.
Excellent. I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate your friendship. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin.